Like last year and a half has been hard. We've had to make some hard decisions. We aren't on the trajectory we thought we would be, 2 years ago. But I consider that a success because we've been able to leverage EOS to help us make some of those hard decisions. I don't think I would have had the visibility into some of the future clouds and future storms ahead of us if it weren't for the EOS discipline, the dashboards we put in place, and the meeting cadence and the transparency we have around some of those issues. So to me, like, success isn't just everything's, daisies and bubblegum and puppies. It's also managing your business effectively during good times and bad.
This is Social Pulse Podcast Agency Edition, your go-to guide to solving your biggest marketing agency challenges authentically. I'm your host, Mike Alton, and each episode is an honest and frank look at what agencies go through, from turning clients to tackling tech and ideas that you can apply to your own business. And now, the rest of today's episode. Welcome back to Social Pulse Podcast Agency Edition, where each week we're talking to marketing agencies like you, going through many of the same struggles you're going through and sharing their stories. Subscribe to find in each episode the inspiration, motivation, and perspiration that go into growing and scaling agencies like yours. Now think back to when you first started your agency. You discovered in yourself a real passion and a talent for helping other businesses with their marketing, and you found success with client after client. But then you also discovered the realities of running a business, team meetings, net terms, hiring and firing, and managing employees. And suddenly you're questioning whether to go back to being a solo consultant, right? If your training and education wasn't anything other than business, how do you structure your agency to function as an effective business and set you and your team up for success? Well, that's exactly what Matt Heinz is going to talk to us about. Matt's career focuses on consistently delivering measurable results with greater sales, revenue growth, product success, and customer loyalty. He founded Heinz Marketing over 15 years ago and brought tremendous experience in sales and marketing to the business, but recognized early on he needed to bring in people and systems to help him tackle the business aspects of running an agency. And that's when he discovered EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System, which offers businesses a framework on which to structure goals, measurements, and meetings. Hey, Matt, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited for this.
I am too. I am so tickled. But let's start by having you talk about when you first started Heinz Marketing. What had you been doing before then? And what made you decide to start an agency? And where did you focus your efforts?
Mike, this has been a giant mistake. Let me take you back. When I studied political science and journalism at the University of Washington with the intent of following the steps of Woodward and Bernstein. I loved writing. I loved journalism, loved storytelling. And long story short, didn't last long there. Went to a PR agency, went to Microsoft for a while, ran marketing at a couple Seattle area startups, and eventually just kind of wanted to try to do my own thing. Didn't intend to build a business, just wanted to try to do independent consulting work. So a little over 15 years ago, quit my job, started with a laptop and a bus pass and just tried to do my own thing. And it started to grow. I started to hire some people, didn't really have a plan, sort of happened organically over time. And thankfully, I found EO, which is the Entrepreneurs Organization, which is a collective of a lot of other entrepreneurs growing their business. And then EOS, as you mentioned, which ironically is not affiliated, but is sort of this operating system that has been instrumental in helping us manage our business, grow our business, even sort of navigate our business through sort of the headwinds we've faced as an industry and certainly in professional services over the last couple of years.
That's fascinating. And I kind of relate to your background. I went to school for history and happened to minor in computer science, got a job with an IT company in Toledo, Ohio. And I've kind of been in this IT world ever since. That really wasn't the intent at all. But I want to dig into this EOS because you, in this great interview with Logan Lyles at Teamwork about how you implemented the EOS system as a framework for growing and structuring your agency. I'd like to spend some time kind of unpacking that for the audience. And I'll link to that interview in the show notes for those of you listening who want to go and learn more about it from that perspective. But can you talk about what EOS is and how it works for your agency?
So it's like you said, it's the Entrepreneurial Operating System. If you're familiar with Vern Harnish's Mastering the Rockefeller Habits and Scaling Up Systems, if you've read the book Mastering the Rockefeller Habits, some of the same general principles are part of EOS. EOS is built for companies that, are not that complex, but still need to manage how they grow. And so it's got what they call the Vision Traction Organizer, which is sort of a one-page plan that goes from your purpose and your values down to what the quarterly objectives are. It includes a cadence and a real discipline for leadership meetings on a weekly basis, as well as quarterly and annuals. It includes communication to all staff and sort of a waterfall of those, again, vision, mission, 10-year goal, all the way down to what everyone's doing on a quarterly basis. And I love how it really focuses you on a small set of objectives. It forces you as a business to choose things that are going to have the biggest impact on your business. And you're not 100% right in those choices, but the format kind of forces you as a team to create that focus. The last thing I'll highlight is they don't really call they don't really call it an org chart. They call it an accountability chart. And so you start with the roles to be done and then sort of put people in those seats. When we implemented EOS, it was the first time I put a real sort of formal leadership team in place. And it actually was a relief as an owner that I didn't feel like I owned everything moving forward, even sales and marketing. Like, I have a head of growth now who really manages our sales and marketing. I am heavily involved, but I don't own the number. And that, having that shared accountability on different things, but also having people really specifically know what they're accountable for has been great.
I love that you mentioned that it forces the organization to focus on those very few important things, because a lot of people will compare it to like an OKR structure. And in a lot of ways, it is similar,
Yeah.
except EOS also includes, like you said, the meeting cadence. It even includes the structure of the meetings. So you're going to have these very specific big rocks and milestones and scorecards, and you are to go over those every single week with your direct reports and your management, and make sure that you're all aligned and you're still moving and making progress on those. And OKR, that can get a little fuzzy, I think.
Well, so a couple things I'll sort of share. And again, like, it's, it took us a while to get used to the rhythm and the motion of the EOS system. But, we come into our quarterly meetings and we have, like, one of the things we're expected to do is everyone comes, there's 4 of us on the leadership team, and everyone comes to that quarterly meeting and says, here are the things we think we should focus on. Here are the big rocks that we think we should focus on for the quarter. And everyone puts them on a whiteboard. And there will be like at least 30 to 35 things on that list. We have to winnow it down until we get to no more than 5 to 7. And when you first look at that whiteboard, you're like, there's no way. Like, these are all really important. These could all be useful. And I think without the discipline of the program, you'd be like, let's all just divide and conquer. Let's just all start making progress on these things. So what we do, and this is a tool from EOS, we do something called keep, kill, combine. And so we go through the list from top to bottom. Is this important enough to keep? Yes. Next one. Is this important enough to keep? If we say, well, you know what, now that I've seen the whole list, like, I think we can take that one off. Or there will be some redundancy or some, like, this one's the master rock, this is like a milestone to get there. And so slowly you start to winnow that list down. And there really is magic, not just in the process, but in the people willing to do it. And when you have that on a basis of saying, like, these quarterly rocks are in service to our annual goals, our 3-year goals of where we want the business to be in 3 years, and our 10-year vision of what that is feeding from our purpose and our values. So, I mean, we literally talk about purpose and values in that conversation as we triage the quarterlies in service of the annual and the 3-year goal. It's amazing. The other thing you mentioned is sort of the structured leadership team meeting. When I first read the EOS literature, and it said that you're going to do a 90-minute leadership team meeting every week, I'm like, poke my eye out now. But I will tell you, it's become my favorite meeting of the week. And some are more fun than others. I mean, like, business, if you're running and growing a business, especially in the last year and a half, like, it is not lollipops and daisies all the time. You have hard conversations about hard things. But when you do it in that environment, when you can have open, honest, straightforward, transparent conversations, everything's on the table, no egos anywhere, all the options are open, let's debate it and come up with a decision together. Some of our hardest meetings have been our highest rated leadership team meetings. And I think it's pretty special.
Yeah, in fact, to your point, every meeting is supposed to be rated. The participants are supposed to say at the end of the meeting, how was this? And you start off the meeting by talking about what's keeping you up at night. What a way to start a meeting, right? That's gonna, I mean, if people are really paying attention and they're invested, that's gonna, kind of open the closet a little bit and lets out some of those skeletons. But what were some of the challenges that you were facing or struggling with before you implemented the EOS system, and how did it help address those?
Well, I mean, so, like, I don't know, Mike, if you ever read the book The E-Myth by Michael Gerber, but the E in that book stands for the entrepreneur. So the entrepreneurial myth is that if you're good at something, you can run a business at it, right? Hey, you make really great cookies. You should start a bakery. It's like, maybe not, right? And so the book says, like, you got to be, to run a business of any size, as a founder entrepreneur, you have to be good at three things. You have to be good at the work, right? You or someone has to be good at the work. Two, you have to be good at sort of keeping your trains running on time. Don't run out of cash, get things going, keep the operations running. And three, enough of a visionary to see where the business might be going, to see where you might be headed towards, and thinking at least part of your time on, like, how do I get there beyond just the day-to-day? So I learned that part early. Just because I learned that doesn't mean I was any good at it. So, as we grew, I wasn't doing a good job managing the team, to be honest. I wasn't doing a good job creating standards and best practices for how we consistently apply what we say we do at a strategic and a value proposition level. And I was getting frustrated doing things that I was competent at, but didn't enjoy and didn't feel like I was very good at. And so EOS allowed me to elevate some people on the team into positions where they are strong, where they are capable, where they are excited to do things that I am the opposite of. And it made it really easy for me to sort of say, here's what I'm good at. Here's the things I can contribute to our organization. And I'm putting people in place so they have responsibility and are enabled to own and execute on things where they are good. That shift to shared responsibility from people that are bought into the purpose of our business and bought into the reason we exist. And that alone, Mike, was also a big change. Like, when we looked at, if you would have asked me 5 years ago, like, what's the purpose of your business? I would have said, well, we help, companies with complex sales cycles build predictable pipelines. That's what we do. And in the EOS process, I learned that is not our purpose. That is our niche. That is what we do, right? But why do we do it? Why we do it is our purpose. So our stated purpose now as a business is to positively impact careers and lives by enabling work that matters. And that whole statement is really important to me, but I quote positively impact careers and lives multiple times a week when we make decisions internally and externally about where we're going to focus and what we're going to enable internally and externally. And it allows us to sort of get a little more creative as the market shifts, as needs change. What are we doing to positively impact careers and lives? What are we doing to enable work that matters? And the way we manifest that through our skills and talents and opportunities, I think it allows us to be more creative, but also helps us say no to things that don't necessarily align with that as well.
And see, this is why I just had to bring you on the show, because to me, I think a lot of people look at frameworks like EOS and think, oh, this is just another way to come up with goals. I can create SMART goals. I don't need a framework. And obviously it's so much more impactful. The things that you're telling me right now are so powerful to go from thinking about what your business does to why you are in business in the first place, and obviously have a why that's much more profound than let's just make some more money or something like that.
Right.
That's phenomenal. Now, there was this really great moment that I loved in that interview where you explained how EOS has this model, the visionary, which you mentioned, and an integrator, and that model exists at your agency, and you're essentially the dreamer, and your COO is the realist. Can you talk about how that works for you?
This is another thing that's really helped me sort of exist in my role. So first of all, EOS, they have there's distinction between the visionary and the integrator. And the visionary is usually the founder and sort of the big thinker and the guy that goes into the lab and figures out new things. I really don't like that term visionary, Mike. It kind of makes me throw up a little in my mouth, but it definitely, like, if you look at the definition of what that person does, it's like, yeah, that's me. I've got ideas a lot, and I got just all these things I want to try to do. The integrator is the real rock of the business. Like, when I introduce Maria to people, I say, like, she's my COO. Like, she legit runs the business. And the nice thing about that relationship, and for me to basically say, I've got someone I know and trust that is aligned on purpose, values, and mission, to make sure that the engine continues to run, to sort of think about the financials and the structure behind the business, and to, quite frankly, say no to 9 out of the 10 ideas that I have. That is, like, some people would look at that and say that is frustrating. I think it's liberating, because it allows me to say, okay, like, here's some new ideas. Here's some creative things we could do. Have we tried this? Have we thought of this? Have we thought of this? And even in between those quarterly meetings, like, she's able to say, well, we don't, if you want to do this, we can't do this. Okay, you're right. Yeah, don't do that. Okay. Or then this is a good idea, but it isn't scale, and it's going to distract us from what we need to be doing. Like, it liberates me to be free with those ideas, because I know that someone is going to put it through the reality test. And so there's a book in the EOS literature called Rocket Fuel, and it is all about that relationship between visionary and integrator. And when you can dial in with the right people that are aligned, it really is powerful. And I am very lucky that I have an integrator that is phenomenal. We worked together here at Heinz Marketing for 15 years. So I actually was my first hire long ago. We worked together at a company before that. And it's just been a great relationship and a huge part of making EOS successful for us.
First of all, that's incredible that you guys have been working together for that long. That's amazing. And I also, honestly, those of you listening, I want to put you on the hot seat for just a second, because most of you listening are agency owners. You're the visionaries, and you probably don't realize just how disruptive it is when you go directly to a team member with an idea in the middle of a quarter and they don't typically feel like they've got the power or the history or the incentive to stand up and say, I don't really think this is a good idea right now, because you're the owner, you're the CEO.
Oh, yeah. They want to please
so they're just
you.
going to do it.
They want to please you. They're going to go try it. They're like, the owner wants me to do this. Like, I want to look good to them. And I will tell you that was transitioning into EOS. Even if you're well-meaning and even if you're bought in, you got to break some habits. And in a well-meaning way, for a while, there were still times when I would email other people because I don't want to have to run it by Maria. I know we need to do this. I'm going to email this person. And 4 out of 5 times, Maria's like, A, not the process. B, here's the 6 reasons why that isn't a good idea right now and why you just disrupted someone from the work that you asked that we told them at the quarterly they need to be focused on. And here I was well-meaning thinking, well, I want to move forward quickly. And this is like, so this is not some fly-by-night system someone invented. This is a proven operating model for fast growth, innovative, creative businesses. And like I said, so Maria and I, not only are we in lockstep, but we're in communication daily. We have a weekly 1 hour, what we call our same page meeting. Same page is another sort of general tool out of the EOS vernacular. We use a tool called 90. It's a tool specifically built for those running EOS. And we've got an agenda for our 90 meeting, for our same page meetings that we will look at and we'll triage and we'll work through those issues. And I can add stuff and she can add stuff. I can send stuff in between and it goes on a separate visionary log that she uses to triage all the crazy things I come up with. And so you got to lean into that system to make this work. And what I've found too is whether or not you use EOS, you reach as you grow. Even if we weren't using EOS, we would not have the alignment and the growth potential if I had kept all those Legos to myself. If I'd kept responsibility of things that I said, well, I know how I want to do it, and I don't know that I can trust someone else. You become your own limiter. And you may not see that and you may not feel that, but if the business isn't growing and other people are frustrated and you've got a churn issue, that's when you got to look in the mirror. And I think even before EOS, there was a moment that for me, even as we implemented EOS, I had to accept things that were going to be different about how the business was going to run, about decisions people were going to make, about things I was no longer involved in. And again, I started by thinking that was restrictive. I started by thinking that was a negative. And if you are an owner and you are that visionary, you're that creative person that has new ideas, it's the reason why you have your business, is the reason why you're successful. This system allows you to lean into that. But you got to have a system you trust. You got to have a VTO, vision traction organizer you trust, and you have that relationship with your integrator is absolutely essential.
Couldn't agree more. Folks, we're talking with Matt Heinz about the structure of your agency and positioning it to grow. Now, another way you can scale your agency is by offering social media services. Now, if you aren't already, here's one agency doing just that.
I love social media. I love what we do. I love one of my sayings is that I feel like we're changing the world one post at a time. And the positivity, it's just, who I am. Currently, we are growing leaps and bounds. We just in the last couple of years have expanded our office. We're getting ready to expand again. We manage over 150 accounts just on Agora Pulse. So it has to be user-friendly for me and everyone that works with it, and it has to be something that I know that I can rely on, that I can trust. Like I said, and the biggest feature that we have is just the dashboard, that it is so easy to use and that anybody can use it. And actually, one of the reasons why I switched from the company that I had used before was that the lack thereof of customer service. It's definitely been, if not the best, one of the best companies to deal with as far as customer service.
All right. So getting back to EOS, in the years, excuse me, since you've implemented this system, what have been some of the issues that you've faced with the system that other agencies listening might want to know about, maybe avoid?
Well, I think we hired an implementer to help us launch it, and we worked with him for about a year and a half until we felt like we could do it on our own. I think, I would highly recommend, if you're going to do it right. And if you're worried about the cost of an implementer to put this in place for you, then you're probably not the size or just the intellectual capacity to do it. I realized, I mean, look, I'm sole owner. Like every dollar we spend on expenses or anything that's related to business is a dollar I don't put in my pocket or give to my family. So, bringing an integrator in was material, but we would not be as successful as we are today. We would not be as good at operating EOS. And when I say successful, I don't mean like, oh, geez, we're growing, 80% a year. Like last year and a half has been hard. We've had to make some hard decisions. We aren't on the trajectory we thought we would be, 2 years ago. But I consider that a success because we've been able to leverage EOS to help us make some of those hard decisions. We've been able to leverage EOS. I don't think I would have had the visibility into some of the future clouds and future storms ahead of us if it weren't for the EOS discipline, the dashboards we put in place, and the meeting cadence and the transparency we have around some of those issues. So to me, like success isn't just everything's, daisies and bubblegum and puppies. It's also managing your business effectively during good times and bad. So leaning into the system, using an integrator to start, and then keeping the discipline that EOS recommends. It would be really easy for companies, I've seen companies that say, well, we implement part of EOS. It's like, I don't know that you can do that. Like it'd be really easy to say, well, we don't need to meet for 90 minutes. Let's do 30 most times and we'll meet for an hour. You're not going to get the full value out of the system. You're not going to get the full value of that team getting together and triaging your biggest issues. So the most successful companies that are using EOS have leaned into the system and have learned over time that it is the opposite of a burden. It is the opposite of constricting. It is the opposite of some onerous investment that's just going to take your time and money away from you. It is the opposite of that. It is going to enable you personally to have the role in the business you want. I feel like I'm doing an EOS commercial here, Mike. Like I didn't mean to sort of, but I really do. Like I've seen companies like kind of half-ass it, and I've seen companies like ours and others do it really well. And in good times and bad, this is a pillar for us of running our business right.
Well, to your point, there were plenty of companies that went out of business during the pandemic, during the recession, whatever we're going to call it, the bad economic times post-pandemic. And yeah, having that system in place obviously helped you weather that storm. So those of you listening today, this is the kind of system that you should have in place now because there will be more storms in the horizon. We don't know what they're going to look like or when they're going to come, but having your system prepared and thinking about the metrics that matter and focused on the initiatives that are going to actually move the needle for your business will help you prepare for those. Now, you mentioned
it's like a lot of things in your business, right? I mean, like if you feel like, hey, listen, like we're just in survival mode right now. We can't afford to spend time on a new operating system. We can't afford to spend time on an implementer. I get it, and you're probably right, But like when the storm clouds are gone and when it gets sunny and like God help us, I'm starting to see like that the second half of this year could be that, for many of us in services and B2B. That's when you put these systems in place. That's when you go increase your line of credit when you don't need it and haven't needed it for a while. I wonder if you still will ever need it. Yes, you will. And get as big a one as you can so that you have that flexibility. And so like you have to think about those things in that order to give yourself the tools and the flexibility to run your business over time. So this may not be the right time for EOS for you. And EOS may not be the right system for you. But I would encourage you to be very honest and introspective about what you enjoy about running your business, what you don't enjoy about running your business, and what ceilings you are bumping up on now, in the past, in the future, that keep you from getting where you want to be personally and where you think your business could be and the impact it has.
Couldn't agree more. Now, you mentioned tools. I know you talked a little bit about 90 before. Could you share a little bit more about what that is exactly and how that helps organizations keep up with this structure?
So again, I don't mean this to be a commercial, but 90, you just spell out the number 90.io. And I think it's called that because the L10 meeting, your leadership meeting, is 90 minutes. It's called the L10 meeting because L for leadership, 10 because at the end of the meeting you rate it, and it's a rating of 0 to 10, and you want everyone to give it a 10. And if it's not a 10, you want to talk about why, because that's the way of sort of naturally having conversation about how to get better. So when I'm looking at my dashboard over here on my other screen, like it's got our rocks for the quarter and how we're doing on those. It's got our leadership dashboard that sort of shows me all the key metrics of how well we're doing, including that longer term vision. Like I've got a metric that says in 90 days, what is my projected cash balance to be? Like I want to have at this point, I want to have at least 2 months of cash in the bank at any given time. So now I have a vision for like in 90 days, like how close am I to that? How far away am I from that? How much it makes in excess of that? And based on that, like we can think about other investments we want to make in the business. There's to-dos for people that are in the system. We've got the VTO is a critical part of this. The vision traction organizer, have access to that at any time. The accountability chart's in there. I'm in this every day as a means of sort of prioritizing my time, keeping our efforts and our rocks in the right place. And then when it comes time to do those leadership meetings, it walks you through doing those pieces and has a time period for how you're supposed to spend time. 5 minutes on this, 5 minutes on this, 45 minutes on this. It's just really, we could probably operate EOS without this tool. It would just be a lot more manual and a lot more time.
Yeah, totally agree. We've implemented EOS here at Agora Pulse. We've been using it for a year and a half, I want to say, ish. And one of the things that we really appreciate is that scorecard part of 90, where it's baked into every single meeting. You are going to review the metrics that you've all collectively decided these are the most important metrics that we need to be looking at. And the focus is on a weekly basis, which for some organizations like ours, that's hard. It's hard to put a lot of the metrics on a weekly cadence. But the whole point is that if you're not looking at those metrics on a weekly basis, then it might be 3-4 weeks or a quarter before you realize something's off. But if you can put them into a weekly cadence, you can surface and bubble up those issues far more frequently and then figure out time to address them.
Well, I mean, we on a weekly basis, we look at things like, what are our sales for the quarter? We look at that cash balance number. We look at cheers submitted. So we have a tool where we encourage our employees to submit cheers and sort of just accolades to each other. We've got a goal for that. Those are things we can look at on a weekly basis, but we're not looking at gross margin on a weekly basis. Like we're not that kind of business. So that's a monthly metric, and there's a monthly tab that lets us go in there and plug that in and see how we're doing. So it just really depends on sort of where you're at. But I think that discipline and transparency. And sometimes I'm looking at this and like it's the good numbers are red or good numbers are green, the bad numbers are red. You don't want to see red numbers, but hey, a lot of us are seeing red numbers right now. And that's just it painful to look at that, but that's the reality. And if you try to shy away from that stuff, you say, oh, it'll take care of itself. It will not. You got to face the demons, you got to face the problems and figure out what are you going to do to solve it and get around it and get through it.
Fabulous. We'll have all the links to 90 and everything, other resources that we've talked about so far. I want to switch gears for a little bit because I just have a couple of questions I'd love to ask all the agencies that come in here, mostly because we're all kind of facing a lot of the same issues. And the first question is with regard to organic social media. Now, you can think about this question from your own perspective or on behalf of your clients, but I'm really curious how you measure the business impact of social media.
Yeah, and the answer to this has changed over time, right? Like we used to be real big into Twitter. We spend less time there now. I, do a lot of work on LinkedIn. I would first tell you that, we are not the best at measuring our social media, but I can see the impact when you look across how well we are doing at an individual and a corporate level across multiple channels. And, for us, it's LinkedIn, it's a little bit of X, it's Instagram. We haven't gotten into the TikTok too much, but we do have metrics around reach. And so we do look at what kind of reach do we have as a business across everything we do? We've got our newsletter list, we've got our website, but then we look at our social reach as well. Like how well are we influencing individuals there? The tools we do have show us how much more important it is for individuals to be sharing content versus corporate pages from just an audience, from an authenticity, as well as from a reach standpoint. So we've learned a lot of lessons there. And it's also sort of taught us about what kind of things we should be doing, different types of content, video versus audio versus long form versus short form in different formats. So it's a lot of experimentation, and it's really also just thinking about it as part of a broader body of work for us. I don't know any company that's able to say, well, we're putting all our eggs in the initial basket, or all our eggs in a direct marketing basket, or we're putting all our eggs in paid. For B2B, it's never that simple, but I love the fact that we can get more people aware of Heinz Marketing, but more importantly, aware of the amazing people behind Heinz Marketing that isn't Matt Heinz that's doing the work. I love that we can use our content and social engines to accelerate the awareness and perceived expertise and just general perception that like there's, if Matt went away, there's nothing that changes with the quality of what you're getting from Heinz Marketing from these people, as evidenced by the things that they're sharing and the way that they're engaging.
Fantastic. Now, my last question for you, Matt, just want to know what's in your tech stack. And I always like hearing from agencies, what tools are really helping them, what's new perhaps. What would you share with the agencies listening?
I mean, for a fairly small agency, we've got a pretty decent stack. We've got Marketo, we've got Salesforce, we use Outreach. I use a tool called Lead IQ. That's a contact tool that's been super, super helpful for me. What else do we use? I mean, we're big on Slack from a community management standpoint as well. We love using Sendoso to do sort of, fun surprises for people in our pipeline. But honestly, we try to keep it pretty simple. We just try to, the strategy process playbooks that we do for our clients, we develop for ourselves and just try to be really consistent and value added across the channels that we have.
Terrific. Great advice. Again, we'll have the links to those in the show notes. Matt, you've been absolutely amazing. This has been such a fun conversation. I know that agency owners are going to come out of this thinking, okay, well, first of all, I need to listen to this like 2 more times to really unpack this EOS system and how to apply it to myself. But for those who want to learn more about the work that you're doing, the topics you talk about, where can they go to find you and your agency?
Just find us at heinzmarketing.com, just HEINZ, like the ketchup marketing.com. I think we do a decent job. We redid our website last year, did a pretty good job of sort of explaining what we do and how we do it. Really, really proud, as I mentioned, of the content engine we generate. I used to write every one of our blog posts. Now I write 0 of our blog posts, and it's gotten phenomenally better because it's just got such great, rich, deep content on a wide variety of topics that help companies build that predictable pipeline. And I'm just Matt, M-A-T-T, at heinzmarketing.com. Would welcome anyone who sees this, has a question, wants to reach out. Would love to hear from you.
Terrific. Thanks. And that's all we've got for today, friends. Don't forget to subscribe on Apple, Social Pulse Podcast Agency Edition, and leave us a review. We'd love to know what you think. Until next time. Thank you for listening to another episode of Social Pulse Podcast Agency Edition, hosted by Mike.
You may know you're listening to this show along the Marketing Podcast Network, but did you know there are other great shows on MPN to help your business? Christy Heiler hosts a fantastic podcast called Own It. Christy, tell us more about the show.
Own It is all about celebrating women and non-binary advertising agency owners. We talk about buying out of the boys' club of advertising because less than 1% of ad agencies are owned by women.
And where can people subscribe?
You can find the podcast at untilyouownit.com. We're also on the Marketing Podcast Network at marketingpodcast.net. And of course, you can subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
You heard her. Go subscribe. This podcast is heard along the Marketing Podcast Network. For more great marketing podcasts, visit marketingpodcasts.net.